If you've ever wondered how to get the lower cowling off one of these ProXS engines, today's video is for you. So stay tuned and let's see how it's done. All right, so let's talk about some tools that you're going to have. The number one thing is that you're going to need a variety of 5/16 sockets. I have a short one with a 3/8 drive on the back. I have a 1/4 inch drive, 5/16. I have a deep well 5/16. So I've got a variety of the sockets. I've got a socket wrench in both 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch size. I got a couple of extensions, a short 3-inch extension, and I've got a really long, like a 16-inch extension. These are both in 3/8. They come in really handy when you're working on stuff like this. I've got an impact drill, and we're going to use this to remove things, but we're going to be very careful about using it to put things back on. I'm also going to recommend that you have one of these somewhere handy that you can get a hold of. These are great. These are for retrieving things that you've dropped that are metal. They have a magnet on the end. In case this one, in fact, has a light on it and a magnet. Most of them just have a magnet. But what they allow you to do is that right there. They allow you to reach things that you cannot get to with your hands. This can come in very handy if you happen to drop one of the bolts. So I just dropped that one on the ground, and I have it in my hand. It's almost like magic. All right, so let's look at everything that you're going to have to do. I've got my GoPro handy because we're going to be getting really up close on some of these things, and I want to be able to really show you what you're doing. So I may switch over to this quite a bit while I'm filming this. Let's switch to this camera, and let me show you what we're going to be doing. So let me show you what you're getting into when you're doing this. Some of the most obvious things are the bolts that you have to take out of this. I really don't consider them screws. I call them bolts. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that you're going to have to take out pretty quick. I don't think you have to remove this one, and I'll show you why. So we're up to 6, 7, 8, and then there's one that's hidden way over here, but it's the equivalent of this. It's just on this side. It's right there, if you can see it. So I think that's 9 so far. So you have to remove those. The reason that I do this, you do not have to take this off. If you're completely removing your cowling, yes, you do. If you're not completely removing your cowling, you can just loosen this if you need to, but I'll show you why I loosen it up. There is another one way up under here that you see. Hopefully you can see that. It's kind of hard to see, but it's way up here. And the easiest way for me to get a wrench in there to that, or an adapter or whatever I got to do, is just to undo this. It comes off fairly easy. And so that's one thing that I'm going to do. Now, this next step I'm going to tell you is semi-optional. Okay, when I'm going to split the case on the back of this motor, I do not want to take a chance on breaking any of this. It's just, I mean, it feels like metal. I don't know, maybe it is metal, maybe it's some kind of composite, I'm not sure. But I don't want to take a chance on damaging this. And so I'm going to do everything I can to prevent that. So if I'm going to take all of these other bolts off in order to be able to split the case, there are a couple that I'm going to say are semi-optional, okay? I want to be able to split even the front of the case apart for what I am doing. Now, it may be optional for you, but I don't want to take a chance again on breaking something or putting this in a bind. So I am going to be taking these off as part of what I do. And I'm going to show you how I do that. The other thing is, again, if you're completely removing this cowling, you are going to need to take these out anyway. So I'm going to show you the trick to that. So let's see, we're up to 9. There's 10. There's one down here. Is 11. Maybe I should use this. There's 10. I'll show you how to get to this one. There's 11. There's one right here. Let's see. Can you see this one? That's number 11. So that's 10. That's 11. 12, and you can see I actually already have that loose to try to speed things up some. That's 12. And then there's one here is 13. One here is 14. So we're up to 14 of these so far. Don't panic. It sounds really bad. You're going to have to take this off. I already got it loose, as you can see. That's 15. Here's one more, is 16. And you're just going to have to figure out what is the easiest way for you to get to these, okay? But every one of these is every one of these is 5/16. So that silver one, it's the only one that's silver. You're going to take that off. And like I said, I already loosened these up, but you're going to take that off, pull it out. I'm going to set it up here. And I do notice that blue, these have a little bit of thread locker on them. There is a lot of vibration in these motors running down the lake. So that thread locker just helps keep it all together. Now this next one is way down here. Again, I already have it loose, but it's kind of hard for me to get to. But it's way down there. And so on this one, I may just use, yeah, there we go. On this one, I've loosened it up, and I'm just using my deep well socket on that. Now, try very hard not to drop these as you're doing this, okay? So there again, it's this one. You don't need to do the ones on the other side. Just do this side. At least in my case, this is what I chose to do. This is the only one of these that has a washer on it. So I'm going to set that up here beside this one because both of those go to the back. That's the bottom and that's the top. And I'm going to remember it just like that, top, bottom. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is pull this rubber seal off. This starts here on the front of the motor. And it is, I will tell you, the first time I did this, it was a little bit tricky to get this started. But once you get it started and pull up on it, you should just be able to loosen it up like this. There we go. It popped loose right there. Now, I'm not going to take this completely off, but again, my goal is to split the cowling apart. So I'm at least going to get it beyond where the case comes together right there. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to lay it out of the way. I'm going to lay it over here like that. Okay, so, okay, let's leave this like this at this point. Let's move up here and let's look at the next thing that we're going to do. Unfortunately, to get this loose, there are two screws that I pointed out earlier. Excuse me, there are two bolts. There's one here and there's one here. Okay, in order for me to get a hold of these, yes, you could do it with a wrench. I could get in here and do this and turn and turn and turn. I could get to this bottom one, but it would be so difficult for me to do that and it would just take me forever. So what I'm going to do instead is I can take this bracket off fairly easy, okay? And so that's what I'm going to do. To do that, again, you're going to use 5/16, just like this, okay? You got one here, you got one here, and then you've got the one down here on the bottom right there. And you're going to want to take all three of these out, and this piece comes out very easily once you do that. So let's see if I can get a hold of this one. I had already loosened the bottom. I'm going to take a 5/16 on a 1/4-inch drive. Okay, and then I'm going to put this down here. In case you don't see this on your motor, this is vessel view. I'll do a video on this some other time because it is so nice to have this. But for today, just know that if you don't see this on your motor, it's because I have vessel view. But I'm going to reach way down here until I can get a hold of this. And I'm going to do this until it starts coming up. I went online and I could not find anyone who discussed how you do this. Not one person. Okay, got that off. Notice a little bit of thread locker. I'm going to put this one over here. Okay, because that's the bottom of this bracket. Now, I've got to reach in here on these two that I know are hard for you to see. Let's see if I can put you right over here. But you'll see those. They're up inside this. Same thing.
loosen this one.
And then I'm going to go to the other side. So remember, you don't necessarily have to do this unless you're taking the cowling completely off. But in my case, I'm worried about the potential of cracking or breaking one of these areas where bolts come together. Even though I'm only splitting the cowling apart in the back, I'm just not willing to take a chance on that. So what I'm doing is I'm just loosening this up by hand. And as you can see, it's really getting loose. Really, ideally, I don't want to leave that sitting in there. So I'm going to take that out. There's one. I'm going to set it right here by the other one. I know, so far, are those identical? These are not identical. They're slightly different. So we'll look at that here in just a minute. Oh, excuse me. I guess that has to go out here, doesn't it? So let's loosen this one up until it's ready to come out. Okay, now the whole thing is just going to fall in my hand, basically. All right, so I'm going to set that down. But because there are 3 of these, I can pretty much guarantee you there's going to be 2 long ones and 1 short one. So if you're panicked saying, where does that go? The short one goes there, and the 2 long ones are going to go here and here. Okay, so I've got that out of the way. Now look at what that does for you. Look how easy it is to get to these. This was nearly impossible to get to. I don't have to take these off. If you'll notice, there's one here, and there's one down here, and one up here. I'm only going to do this side. I'm not going to take that side off as well. So let me see if I can get these loose without too much trouble. Yep. This one is a little tricky to get to. This is going to be a great example of how I want to use this dude right here. So let's look at this. There's my long extension. There's my universal joint. And I'm going to put a 3/8 socket on here that is 5/16. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this crazy, look how long this thing is, okay? But this just comes in handy for stuff like this. I'm going to put it on there. Doing this one-handed is just crazy, but I'm just that crazy. But look at this. Is that not cool? Is that not cool? Ugh. I loosened it just barely, but I didn't loosen it enough to keep from putting a wrench on it. All right. Now look at this. That is awesome. U-joint, gotta have it. Get you one in a 1/4 inch drive, get you one in a 1/2 inch drive, get you one in a 3/8 inch drive. Should be able to take that out by hand. There's that. I'm gonna set it down here by this, so I know that that's the one that goes right beside this. I'm gonna keep it right here. I'm gonna reach in here and I'm gonna take the bottom one out. Now I'm gonna show you something. That's the bottom one. Look at the difference. The bottom is the shorter of the 2. The top one's longer. I can also look in here and I can see that the ear that is on this little piece of metal here is kind of thin, maybe just over a 1/4 inch, but the ear that's on this side is a 1/2 inch thick. That also tells me this is the longer bolt and this is the shorter one. Okay, so we've got both of these off. We've got one side of this disconnected. And let's see. I've got an impact wrench, 1/4 inch. I'm going to carefully loosen that up. I'll come down here. Okay, and then there's one on this side as well. There's another one that's way under there, but you can get to it. And for that, I'm going to try to use my long extension. With just my deep well, and just unscrew it by hand. Okay, that one should be ready to come out. I don't want to lose it. I'm going to go ahead and take it out. Okay, again, I'm going to show you the 2 of these that are on the bottom are the longer of the 2. Okay, I'm going to set these right here. In fact, I'm going to set them like they go in. They go in just like this, just like this. And now I've got the bottom two. And by the way, this is called the rigging, or at least in my vast wealth of unknowledge. This is called the rigging. And this is where everything comes through, right? You've got all kinds of stuff that goes to the motor that comes through this tube. And so I guess that's why they call it the rigging tube. And I can see gas line, I can see electricity, I can see the speedometer cable, I can see everything. Okay, but let's go back to this. We took this long screw out. Now look at the difference between it and those, okay? It is the longer of the three by far, but there's only one on top and two on bottom, so that helps me remember that. Okay, this will just be loose. Okay, I'm going to just slide that back. There's all your rigging. Now the only difference is I'm not going to take this all the way off, okay? I'm ready to start pulling apart here, but I still have more bolts to take off. Again, if you are going all the way and you're going to completely remove this, I'll tell you what is left at this point, okay? You're going to have to disconnect the fuel filter right here at this quick disconnect. This one, you're going to take that off. You're going to release, which is pretty simple. You just push these out of the way. But you're going to release the gear shifter and the speedometer. The bottom one is the gear shifter. The top one is the speedometer cable. You're going to take both of those off, which is actually a lot easier than you may think. You basically just lift this little lever and that just slides right out. So those are not that hard to take off. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to take a chance on getting them out of adjustment. So I'm not doing that, but you're going to have to take, if you're going to split your cowling, undo the fuel filter, undo the throttle, undo the gear shifter, and then you're going to have to come up here on the bottom of the starter. You're going to have to remove this heavy duty line. You're going to have to remove this line right here. And then all of the control cables to this motor is this big jumbled up colorful mess right here. And the good news is you can disconnect it, okay? But you can unscrew this, pull this out and disconnect this, and then you'll have to, like, of course, undo some of these little clips and stuff. But at that point, you'll have all the electrical stuff loose, and you should be able to pull all of that rigging out of the hole and set it out of the way. So I'm just going to leave this here. What taking this off has allowed me to do is get real good access to that dude that I've not been able to get to until just now. So I'm going to put you right here. I hope I can set you in here in a way that you'll be able to watch this. Okay, like that. And now, hopefully you can see that. That should be ready to come out at this point. There it is. But I'm going to set that one right back here by itself. And I know that's the one that's tucked away up and underneath here. So we got that. Guess what? You've done all the hard stuff. I've got my deep well on. We're going to go up and underneath here. You may wonder if you have to take this off. Don't take this one off. Leave that on. But come right here. Now some of these I've already loosened. You may wonder why they're so loose, because I've already loosened them. And that's loose. There's one on the front. You're going to loosen that one. Okay. There's one short one in the back. There's one here. One here. Okay. Now that we've done that, I'm going to swap back to the other. Actually, so now that I've done that, I'm going to show you one more time where we're at and what we just did. We loosened this one. Set that here. This one. Set it here. And there's one on the front, and it's right here. Now the good news is all three of those are exactly the same size. The ones on the back, however, are not the same size. The top one is the longest one. That's the top one. The second one is medium size compared to the top. And then the bottom one is one of these shorter ones. So now that I know that, I'm going to set these in the boat. That's the highest one, that's the one in the middle, that's the lowest one. With that, your entire cowling now is disconnected from the other side, and it's disconnected from anything that would prevent you from pulling it way back. So let's switch to the other camera. All right, so let's look and see what's going to happen next. All right, this little piece is part of what you have to take off when you're doing a lower unit and removing the lower unit and lowering that down. This gives you access to the anode that's on the bottom of the foot. So I'm just going to take that and set that out of the way temporarily. I'm just going to put it right there. If this one comes out, we'll simply put it back when the time comes. But for now, I'm just going to hopefully leave it right there. I will tell you, where this one has sat 3-4 years now, it makes a really nice seal inside the cowling, the top cowling at the very bottom. If you look down, there's a metal shelf that runs all the way around, and there is a seal between it and the cowling, and it holds it together really, really well. It's completely loose right now. So what you can do is just slowly start trying to pry things apart. Okay, let me move the camera because I want you to see this. I'm going to start right here, the very back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just slowly prying this apart. And if you're worried, yeah, but something's still together. I mean, it feels like something's still together, but as you pry this apart, you're going to see it just keeps getting further and further apart. Okay, see how it's starting to come apart? And what's happening as I look down inside the motor is that seal that I'm talking about starts coming away from the cowling, the lower cowling. There we go. And as I pull this out, I can now show you this is the seal that I'm talking about right here. Now I'm going to move the camera and show you what I'm talking about inside, because this is what gets people. I'm going to put my finger down here and show you, but this rubber seal right here, it just makes such a good seal when this is brand new underneath this right here, that it feels to you like you're not making any progress, and it sort of feels like something's not coming apart. But at this point, you actually have this way, way loose, okay? And it'll come as far out as you want it to because you've disconnected everything. Because you've taken the time to get everything disconnected correctly. Now you have all kinds of options of what you can do with this thing, okay? I could go ahead and pull this apart here in the front. Remember, the way that we did this, let's move the camera here. The way that I did this is now starting to come loose right here. See how I can just push it apart? It's starting to come across there, or starting to come out. Okay, that's because I took these two out. And if you look in the back, split, okay? And I can continue to split that further and further apart because it's ready to completely come off at this point. If you look up here, the only thing that's really going to hold this on the front side of this is the rigging that's coming through this boot right here. So at this point, if you are completely removing this, you're going to have to disconnect all the rigging. Okay? That's all there is to it. Again, the quick disconnect on this side of the fuel filter, the throttle, the gear shifter, and then you're going to have to disconnect this electrical wire, this big ground right here. You have to disconnect that, and then you're going to have to disconnect the starter right here, this big cable that comes up to the starter. And then I'm not exactly sure because I'm not going to take this off, but there's two wires coming in here, and as long as they're separated, you're just going to take the one that goes through the rigging, and that's the one you're going to have to take off. So that'll give you everything that's down here. That'll give you these two, and then what's left is the big wiring harness, and it's huge. And again, that's right here. And you'll just unscrew this, disconnect that, and then you can pull all of that out of the cowling. And then you can completely take the cowling off the boat at that point. And so I'm ready to put this thing back together. Remember the seal that's right here. This is that seal right here on the back of the motor. And I want you to look at how this is shaped on the cowling when I pull this apart. This little channel right here splits the difference. The top part of it goes above the seal. I hope you can see this. The top part of this little channel goes above the seal. The bottom part of that channel goes underneath the seal. And it just makes a really good tight connection. That's one of the reasons it's hard to get these off the first time. Usually after that, it's not too bad. But when you put this on, make sure that you get it just like that. I want that channel just like that. See how I've got this inside the channel? That's what you want. I can try to get this really close. Okay, just like that. See how now that seal is up inside there? And then as you pull the motor back together, it's just going to magically go where it needs to go. So I hope you're able to see that. And now what I'm going to do is exactly the reverse of everything that I've done. I'm going to put everything back like it was, and hopefully you can do that part. You could always watch the video in reverse. Because I don't want to take a chance on over tightening this. And these impact wrenches, even small ones like mine, are just so strong that they will just break bolt heads off like it's nothing. So as soon as that stops, I don't even know if I'll go a full quarter turn. That would be a full quarter turn. I'm probably going to go an eighth. I'm not even going to go an eighth because that's tight. That's it. I don't need to go any tighter. And again, 1/4 inch drive will keep you from making a mess and breaking everything. These little ears right here and right here, these little ears, those are going to snap into this here and there. one last step. We want to hear that click. Did you hear it? Click. We're at 842 subscribers as of today. I am absolutely thrilled, and thank you all so much for joining the channel and for all of you subscribers. And I'm pushing for that 1,000 subscriber mark, and so it'd be terrific if you can help me get there. When I get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to give away 2 $50 gift packs. I do know one thing: it's time to crank this thing up on the water and see what she'll do. Kick me on down the lake, and it's time to catch some fish. I do know that. So thank you again for watching my video. Tight lines, everybody. God bless.